Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to Step Back Tonight for today, August 24th, 2021. Hi, I'm your host, Tristan. I stream on Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays, I do the Monday Discourse with Mia Mulder from 12 till 2. And on Tuesdays, I do Step Back Tonight, which is a show where I go over some stuff going on in the news, look at some cool stuff, take some questions from the audience, and, just read some articles. Just kind of catch up on the last week. So that's my two shows. I go by he, him pronouns. And if you want to support my work, you can do so at patreon.com/stepbackhistory, doing a Twitch Prime subscription, or with things like Super Chats, Bits, and Twitch subscriptions. All of those are great and are greatly appreciated, because they're what keep me doing this as my job. Hey, people. We got in the Muad Mouse. Nice. Wise in the ways of the desert. Kangaroo Mouse. As far as content that you guys need to see, my latest video is called Cryptocurrency is the Perfect Commodity. It is out now. You guys should see it. It'll be fun. And also, my next video is called The End of the 9/11 Era, which is available now for patrons and will be out depending upon how tomorrow goes, essentially. It'll come out either tomorrow or Thursday. So, hang tight, friends. Okay. And if you have questions you wish to submit to the chat for future streams, possibly this one, we'll see how tonight goes. We've got a lot of content. But yeah, here's a link. You can fill in, asking questions and such. That's how all these user-submitted questions get on the show. And if you're new here, please say hello, because I love when new people show up. So hello. Hello, friends. Everybody. And that's everything to get us started. How's chat doing tonight? Which cryptocurrency has the best aesthetics? Oh, I don't know. Maybe Ethereum? That's a fun one to say. But don't buy cryptocurrencies. It's all a scam. Boo-doo-doo. Oh, man. This is techno-y. All right. Let's chat. What's chat feeling today? Anyways, you guys fill me in. We'll see what's going on. This is usually this is the fastest I've ever gone through. Hello, world. Hello. Okay. Hey, Left Mom, thank you for the subscription. Much appreciated. It's a good enough way to say get on with it. So let's go and take a look at some news and stuff. So, first thing we're gonna do is cover the Canadian election that it's coming up at the end of September. So, in a little over a month, we're going to be having a completely unnecessary election, a snap election, that was called for essentially just to be a cheap power grab for the Liberal Party, as they consider themselves entitled to a majority government, so that they can basically put in they can buy as many pipelines as they want for the new age after the whole pandemic thing. Watched your Black Book / Holodomor video. Appreciate your stance that acknowledging concerns is better than waving them away. Yep. I like to imagine your trousers just say for all who want it. Oh, God. For the Pete Buttigieg trousers. Sup, homie. Hello, Leia. So, let's get into the Canadian election. So, for everybody who is, let's see. For everybody who is not Canadian or hasn't been following what's going on with the Canadian election, Our last federal election took place in 2019, near the end of 2019, so pre-COVID. And the election result was essentially a big loss for the Liberals. The Liberals had gotten into a majority government with the election of Justin Trudeau in 2015, and they took a big beating to the point where they were reduced to a minority government. For those who don't know about parliamentary politics, or I think it has different terms in different countries. Anyways, minority government in Canada is when the government that is formed, the prime minister and everything like that, whatever party wins the election, has a they were bumped down to a minority government, which is when a party has the plurality of seats, but not the majority of seats. Because Canada is a stupid country that can't do coalitions. In fact, the Conservative Party back in 2011 thoroughly poisoned it in Canadian politics. So the idea of a coalition government is essentially not thinkable in our politics. And honestly, a lot of people assume that any sort of coalition government would be one between the Liberals and the NDP, but the Liberals are closer to the Conservatives than the NDP. And the Liberals are our center-right party, NDP is our center-left party, and the Conservatives are our more right-wing, slightly more right-wing in the Liberal Party. So that happened in 2019, and anytime we get these minority government situations, essentially, the government can't pass any bills without getting other parties on board in some capacity. So they've been allying with the Conservatives to pass all sorts of right-wing legislation and all that kind of fun stuff. But the last year has obviously been dominated by our response to the pandemic. Now, in the response to the pandemic, we have seen public opinion polls shift quite a bit. Polls went up for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. Polls went down for the Conservatives, and things are also looking decent for the NDP because a lot of the critical things that were passed, during COVID, were done so on the suggestion of the NDP with initial opposition from the Liberals until they turned out to be too popular or too essential to not pass. So that was, things like CHIRB and things like that. Anyways, which is sort of like our pandemic relief checks for people who had been made unemployed by everything, which they canceled last fall, by the way. Now, let's see. So on that note, it's now 2021. It's been a little under 2 years since the last election, and the Prime Minister, seeing his polls looking up, decided to do a snap election. A snap election is where they just call an election out of nowhere to try and get themselves a majority government because their polls looked good. Problem with that is that the pandemic's not over yet, so it doesn't look super good to the Liberal Party that they're trying to do an election which is just like a naked power grab during the middle of the fourth wave of the pandemic, when there are some serious pieces of legislation that could be passed. And already, as the election has been sort of moving on, as we've gone through our first couple weeks since the writ's been dropped, we've learned some fun things. Like, we learned that apparently the Liberals don't really have any ideas for this election. Over the weekend, Justin Trudeau, apparently on a call with the other MP candidates, actually asked if anybody had any, wow ideas, and everyone's sort of just mocking at the fact that this party that did this election that nobody wants is supposedly completely out of ideas for what to build this election around. Like the fact that the other parties put out their party platforms way before the Liberals, and it's just it's not looking good. This week has been basically a story of watching Justin Trudeau really look like an ass in front of the whole country. And now we're in this weird place. So we'll see where it goes. My guess is that his future as the leader of the Liberal Party will be in danger if he doesn't pull a majority out of this election, because then that would be 2 minority governments in a row, and to the Liberals, minority government is considered a failure. So that's been fun. So I wanted to take a look a little bit at what's been going on in our election. We've had 2 things happen real quick. One thing is to mention is that in the polls, maybe we should do a poll. I'll look at the polls. That's a good way to get started, right? People like polls. So we have something. We have a guy at CBC named Eric Grenier, who sort of is like, who literally like markets himself as the Nate Silver of Canada. Now, this is what we're looking at now. These are the 5 major political parties, and their leaders all talking about their run. So as you can see, this is a more conservative poll. Like people who are more closely following the horse race polls on Twitter are a lot less conservative about things changing. But this is the way that it looks at the moment. Though there are some like more like polls, like this hasn't been updated. This hasn't been updated since this morning, but and it's also a lot more conservative. So there's like this whole situation where the polls are looking like the Conservatives and the NDP are moving up at the expense of the Liberals, to the point where basically they have gone from, like in some places like British Columbia, from 1st to 3rd place. And they're really only being held up by the fact that they are still the most popular party in Quebec and Ontario. Now, if you see, there is one candidate on this list by the name of Yves-François Blanchet. He is the leader of the Bloc Québécois, which is sort of like the closest equivalent I could think of is something kind of like the SNP, except like at the federal level. So the Bloc Québécois is essentially a Quebec nationalist party. Ultimately, their goal is Quebec separating into its own country, and they sort of come and go in popularity over time. So this election, it looks like they are going to possibly make some gains. Blanchet is pretty popular, but it does mean that if the Bloc Québécois makes a lot of gains in Quebec, that will almost certainly be at the expense of the Liberals. So that's fun. Twist, Bloc Québécois ends up getting a majority instead of Liberal Conservative. You say that, but there actually was a time in the 90s where the Bloc Québécois was the official opposition. Just, which you could imagine how fun Canadian politics was at this weird point in history where the Separatist Party was the second largest party in Parliament. Does Canada have a president and a prime minister? We don't have a president. We are still technically a constitutional monarchy ruled by Queen Elizabeth II, who is represented in Canada by the Governor General. But the NDP leader, the Social Democratic, center-left guy's name is Jagmeet Singh. Now, to kind of give you an update on how things have been going for the NDP, things have been going very well for the NDP. But you'll see when we get to the actual seat projection where the problem is. One of the major things that happened is that Jagmeet Singh took over the party after a leader named Thomas Mulcair took the 2011 major gains by the NDP, especially in Quebec, and basically lost them. And he also bankrupted the party. So the party's been having to rebuild basically since the 2015 election. Jagmeet Singh took over shortly after that. Does the Governor General actually do anything? Charity stuff, and they're the person who comes in and officially dissolves Parliament and stuff. There's a lot of random stuff. But Jagmeet Singh has taken over the party, and Jagmeet Singh is an interesting character. He's a creature of Ontario NDP politics, which is the NDP is probably Ontario's probably where they're going to pick up the most seats, because they're popular in like big cities, but also BC and such. So that's the way that things are now. So Jagmeet Singh is trying to rebuild because while there was some losses in Quebec during the election with Mulcair, Jagmeet Singh essentially killed the party in Quebec because Quebecois people are super racist, and they refuse to vote for a person with a name like Jagmeet Singh. He's gotten a shit ton. He's the first major party leader of color. He is a Sikh man. He wears a turban. He has a beard. And it has resulted in the media just being super shitty and racist towards him. And Quebec has certainly turned on him quite heavily. So here's the problem. Now let's go. So look at this, and let's see what the seat projections look like. So this is, let's see if we can find it. Here we go. Nope, that's not it. So this is seat projection. So this is a little bit weirder to show, but essentially, let's see, projected likely. So this is the bands of seats that they are predicting. This is a weird sort of thing, but the Liberal Party is sort of in striking distance of getting a majority government. They are much more likely, at this point in the polls, to get a minority government. The Conservatives have a very outsized chance of forming government. I think it's something like, I think it's down here. Yeah, here. 28% chance of a Liberal majority, 53% chance of a minority Liberal government, which would literally be an election that nobody wanted, in which nothing changed. 18% possibility of the Conservatives winning a majority and only a 1% chance, or a minority, and then a 1% chance of a Conservative majority. So that's the situation we're in. What other things do I want to mention is that the Conservative leader, Aaron O'Toole, is sort of really shitty when it comes to, like, he's shitty on pretty much all political issues. He has done some, like, weird, like, populist working class shit recently. Like, he most recently called to have representatives from the workers on the board of directors for any federally funded corporation, which is quite wild for a Conservative leader to go for. The other thing is that Aaron O'Toole apparently shines in debates. So that is going to be a thing. So this is still very early on in the election, I got to mention. But is that not good? No, because like the thing is, like, even though the Liberal Party only really has about 33% of the popular vote, here's the thing. They could, with like 33% of the popular vote, get a majority government, get 100% of the power in government. The reason is because the Liberal Party is, it wins its elections always, like its seats are always won by narrow margins. So all across the country, the Liberal Party has, because they have ruled like 70 years of the last 100 years, and like they are a party that is made up of all of the old money and wealthy of kind of like old Canada, like Quebec and Ontario. It's just like the rich people of those provinces. The Liberal Party is got a lot of money, and it has a very powerful machine. They always allocate their resources in a way so that they have widespread support but not deep support, which in a first past the post kind of system like we have means that, you know, if you win, how to explain this? If you were to win a riding by 25,000 votes, essentially 24,999 of those votes are wasted, because all you really need is 50% plus one, right? So what happens is that the Conservative Party has a heartland. It's called Alberta. Alberta is a deeply, deeply, deeply conservative province where they win almost every single riding in that province, but Alberta doesn't have that much of a population. Then their other like battleground is in the sort of the suburbs of Toronto, where a lot of this is fought out. The NDP is popular in a scattering of prairie provinces, like in Saskatchewan, especially in like places that have a strong presence of native reserves and such, as well as this weird combo in Ontario of the very dense urban areas and the very rural northern areas, kind of for a similar reason with what's it called? Like, blah, I don't know what to call it. But like a lot of their support is concentrated in these regions, while the Liberals have like widespread support, and they have entire regions like Atlantic Canada like almost on lockdown. So it's like the Liberals are tough to beat because every other party is sort of regionally powerful, but even the Green Party, which might get 1 or 2 seats, only really wins like 1 seat in Vancouver, where they run a super locally focused campaign. Should the unexpected Conservative win in the Maritimes color interpretation of the polls? That's a good question. People have been kind of talking that through. It definitely shows that Trudeau seems to be like soft in those regions, and Trudeau's like lackluster response or lackluster campaigning lately has definitely got people worried. But we'll see what the next few weeks, like it's still super early. The campaign's only like been going for 2 weeks, and the election is on September 30th. So we still got a ways to go. But right now, the momentum is firmly in favor of the NDP and the Conservatives. And it's probably not enough for like, because of their regionality, it's probably going to end up being a situation where the Liberals get a minority government, but they get fewer votes than the Conservatives, which is what happened in the last election. You see, we're so early that all the predictions are pretty much the exact same status quo as the last election. So we got campaigning and, debates and still to go. Was there a given justification for the sudden snap election? Yes, but it's very bad. The Liberals or Trudeau argued that the reason this election is happening is because he thinks Canadians, quote, have the right to choose Canada's post-COVID future, which is like a weird thing to say because, one, we're not post-COVID at all. We are. He said this literally as like Ontario, and like Ontario's like back up to like 700 cases a day. Freaking Alberta has like almost 2,000 cases a day going, which is like Alberta is like has a very small population, so it's like real bad. And really, every time they're asked about like when he did the press conference dropping the writ, he basically like every single reporter question was about that. The other thing too is that right timed with the election announcement was all this shit going down in Afghanistan, and so now like Trudeau's botched response to pulling out of Afghanistan, because the Canadian military was also in Afghanistan. It was a NATO operation. So Canada's having controversies with how it's like withdrawing from Afghanistan as well. And that's like all dragging it down. So it's pretty bad. Oh, wait, are you saying Canada bad? Yes. So that's a fun situation. So yeah, this is sort of the way that they're looking now, but these polls are probably going to firm up closer in. If it's anything like any other election, well, I don't know. Here, I can show you the 2019 results. So let's see. So this is what Canada. Let's get full screen here. So this is Canada. Oh, that doesn't fit in the screen at all. So this is the Canadian election results from last year or from 2019. So to sort of explain what's going on here, you can see that the Conservatives have like a deep hold on the prairies. The NDP are in these like northern Manitoba and Nunavut, which are like, you know, indigenous areas, as well as like that area of northern Ontario, a lot of indigenous people living there, as well as the inner cities of like Toronto and the West Coast, which is also, you know, fairly progressive leaning. While the Liberals, as you can see, the Liberals have a pretty good strong hit on the Maritimes, which is sort of I can't really I'll just with my like this kind of area here, the Atlantic coast. Atlantic Canada has and as you can see here, like with New Brunswick, or sorry, with Newfoundland and stuff like that. It's all pretty wild. But the problem is that this map is really hard to give you a really good picture, because like looking at this, it doesn't really look like the Liberals would win. But that's also because this little area here that I'm circling with my mouse is like where half the country lives. And that's the problem. As you can see in there, that the GTA, which is sort of the suburbs around Toronto Metro right here, solid Liberal. And the other area, which is sort of this area here, is the Montreal area, which is the other big city in the country. Also, you know, Bloc Québécois and Liberal. And so a lot of like this area tends to, these suburbs tend to become the battleground between the Liberals and the Conservatives. And every time the Conservatives have won a majority, it's because they've been able to make gains in this place. So that's where we're at. This was the last election. COVID changed quite a bit for a lot of people, so I am fully expecting this election to be weird, indecisive. Like I have this feeling that either nothing is going to change or the map is going to look really weird. So we'll see. I'll probably have more about this when we get kind of closer to the end of the election, because you know, things firm up and everything like that, and also like the debates and stuff. Is Ottawa Liberal? I believe it is. Ottawa is sort of in this region here. Where is Ottawa? It's probably on this list here somewhere. It's not. That's weird. Oh yeah, Ottawa-Gatineau right here. Yeah, solid Liberal. But this could have been... Must be nice to not spend 2 years on elections. Yeah, it is nice. Although the thing about Canada is that we probably go to the polls more often, but we do smaller elections. Because unlike the United States, our elections are all on our provincial, federal, and municipal elections are all on different timers. So what happens is that, like the federal election, which is what we're having right now, which is like Canada-wide, is going to, you know, is going to be the election. Like when I get my ballot, like I know in America you get like a huge list of things to vote for. On my ballot for this election, there's just going to be one thing with just the candidates in my riding. Literally no other thing, just the federal election. Because Ontario, the province I live in, has its own government, and it's actually, like Canadian provinces are actually fairly independent compared to American states. So we will have an election. I think the next Canadian election is next year. So this election will be happening. This federal election will be happening. And then next summer probably is going to be an Ontario election. And then every so often, like cities also have elections on their own schedules. So there's no telling when you're going to have elections. But every election you just get like one ballot. So, what is the state of vaccine hesitancy like in Canada? Has it been heavily politicized issue? Kind of. It's been weird. So, all right, how do we take this? The Canadian right has gone firmly into cuckoo bananas territory, and anti-vaxxers and like, you know, white nationalists and stuff like that are like slowly taking over the conservative base. The thing, though, is that in Canada, one of the weird things about our politics is that the Conservatives sort of made a decision a long time ago that they don't really talk about social issues. Like, it's sort of a convention in Canada that social conservatism is like verboten. And so while there's always like attempts for like there was the last conservative leadership race, there was like a woman named Kelly Leach who tried to run for leader of the party, and a guy named Maxime Bernier who tried to run for leader of the party. And both of them were advocating, like, Kelly Leach's entire thing was hating Muslims. And Maxime Bernier's whole thing was fascism. And then they both lost, and Maxime Bernier ran off and started his own fascist party that is sort of on the things. Social issues don't equal medical issues. Yeah. But the thing is, what's happened is that while the conservative base is like, anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, they like the conservative governments are not responding, and they are like, for the most part, they are supporting vaccination. They have, to different extent, supported lockdowns, although their lockdowns have been much weaker and shorter, and that conservative premiers have definitely handled it the worst. But like, the thing is, though, and this is one of the reasons why I think the conservatives might be in trouble, is that their base is at war with the party, because the party is still like, this is the gentleman's club of rich people who just want to make sure that they're not taxed, and their entire campaigning works off of essentially like acting like Reagan, like, oh, like balancing the budget. That's basically like the only thing they talk about is balancing the budget. While their base is like blood and soil with tiki torches, and like they haven't figured that out yet. So, especially because like they haven't been able to really pick up moderates, because Justin Trudeau is so right wing that he's actually picked up a lot of like the kind of like moderate conservative voter. We have a lot of people who vote liberal conservative based on however they feel, basically. But it does mean that, like right now, so we do have anti-vax people. Canada, I think last I checked, was about 80% vaccinated, maybe higher. The major holdouts are people who are in very rural areas, and especially for some reason it skews younger. Like young people in rural areas are like the lowest vaccinated people. I think they said that your average anti-vaxxer through one study is a 41-year-old woman who lives in Ontario. Does Canada have its own QAnon-style movement, or is it basically just white supremacy? I actually don't know how QAnon has kind of moved to Canada, but I would not be surprised that it exists. I imagine it exists in decent numbers, but they're not anything like America anyway. But we did have like a large anti-mask movement. There was a huge anti-mask protest in Toronto, and they were like protesting like every Saturday for months, causing like a little, super spreader event basically once a week. That was fun. Yeah. My aunt is a QAnoner in Calgary. That makes sense. Alberta is essentially like a extremely hard right-wing province. Alberta is this province here, as you can see. Mask protests. Yeah, there have been mass protests, yeah. But like anti-vaccine stuff, like the vaccination rate in Canada is a lot higher than it is in the US. Although it's like, targeted in different regions. Like Alberta has a much lower vaccination rate. That's why, even though the fact that like Alberta has way fewer people than Ontario does, it has like over double our COVID cases right now. So Canada's vaccination rate is number 3 in the world of countries over 5 million people. That makes sense. Where do y'all think? I don't think the PPC can win any seats in this one. The other thing, too, is because of first past the post and because of like the sort of way that our elections work, everybody votes so cynically. And so very often, most people end up voting for a party that they don't even like because they don't want the other person to win. Like, for example, because there's more than two political parties, right? You could have seats where like 32% vote Liberal, 32% vote NDP, and 30, what's it called? 36% vote Conservative, and that seat would 100% go to the Conservative. So a lot of times, people vote for whoever has the highest chance of winning in their area. And so there's some, seats where the NDP are stronger, some where the Liberals are stronger. Though I think a lot of NDPers are not going to are not going to listen to this sort of strategic vote thing, because Justin Trudeau has spent the last 6 years being prime minister and not doing anything. So it's sort of like given up on every major promise. And if they say like every vote for the NDP is a vote for the Conservatives, which is a thing that they often say, the thing is, the Liberals got elected in 2015 on election reform, and then they didn't do it. And because they didn't do it, they're in this mess. So a lot of people don't feel like they're really like ready to just listen to them. That thing about putting workers on the board, is that good, even though it's from the Conservative guy? As far as I know, it sounds like a sound policy. It's just weird that the Conservatives are pushing it. So yeah, there's the Great Beaverton headline I read. 100% of Liberal voters said they would vote in DP if they thought they could win. It's true. If you look at polls of like how much people like party leaders and stuff like that, like there's Liberal party leaders have a much lower opinion of Justin Trudeau. Or like how do I explain this? Like they very often, because of to kind of like figure out where people's feelings are, not based on how they're going to vote because of the whole cynical thing. They usually ask like what people's opinions of the different leaders are. And one of the things that comes out is that people always really, really like the NDP leader and then don't vote for them. And that sucks. So we'll see. So that's where we're at. The dream scenario would be a Liberal government with an NDP opposition, but a whole lot would need to change for that to be the case. And while the NDP are rising in the polls, I think the best that we can hope for in this situation is that the Liberals hold on to a minority government, and that the NDP is almost neck and neck with the Conservatives as far as their support goes. If the NDP could pull official opposition, that would be a real rabbit out of a hat, but the cases are very unlikely. They'll probably, but having a stronger third place position would be nice. So really, the most likely option is that nothing will change and everything will just keep getting worse, as per usual. Does Canada have anything like the Justice Democrats in the USA attempts to pull the Libs left? No, because if you are a left-wing person, you're not in the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party is more or less a right-wing party. They are the ultimate fiscally conservative, socially liberal type party, where they, on the surface, say nice things while building oil pipelines through indigenous territory. So they're Democrats. The Liberals are like the Democrats, but we don't have. But Justice Democrats are a group, is a super PAC or just a PAC that is trying to field more left-wing Democrats to run in the United States, to push the Democratic Party more left-wing, which I've been hearing today is actually kind of bearing some fruit today, but that's new. That the Tories are like the Democrats? Well, it really depends. Our politics are not. It's not easy to make that kind of comparison. But the thing is that the Conservatives and the Liberals have virtually no disagreements on policy. That's the main. The thing is, the Liberals and Conservatives have identical politics when it comes to everything. So like their only difference really is in affect and rhetoric. While like when they're in power, they pass the exact same types of laws. Like there was even in 2019, they had a debate, and it was so obvious in the debate that Andrew Scheer, the leader of the Conservatives, and Justin Trudeau they had a hard time because like they were obviously gunning for each other in the debate, but they couldn't really bring themselves to disagree on anything. So their fights just got really like tiny and minutia and about like wording and stuff. It was really weird. So it's a one-party system with two kinds of hats. Yeah, basically. But more like anybody who would be like the Squad or anything like that are in the NDP. So there's that. Yeah, so like here's let's take a look at this story real quick. So vast majority of Canadians believe Trudeau could have waited a year until calling an election seen as a power grab. The Liberals' lead over the Conservatives has dwindled to barely 2% as a Titan race heads into the second week. So let's take a look at this thing. So nearly 7 out of 10 Canadians think that the Liberal Party leader Justin Trudeau could have waited till at least next year before calling the current federal election, and a large majority believe he did it now as a power grab to win a majority government. As the federal election enters its second week, the Liberals' lead over the Conservative parties has dwindled to barely 2%, as both Tories and the NDP have slightly increased their support over the past few days, according to a Leger poll conducted for Post Media. Liberal support among Liberal support amongst decided voters sits at 33%, down from 35% last week, whereas Conservative and NDP have each increased 1% to 31% and 21% respectively. And this article is from yesterday, so it's from this morning, and like a lot of the polls that came out this morning, like this came out this morning, but it's based on yesterday's data, and a lot of data that came out today looked really good for the NDP. So. All right, so we have what we have at the end of the first week of the campaign is both opposition parties nibbling a bit from the Liberals. Yeah. The other thing that's another factor is that the Green Party has sort of imploded. Like support shows that the Green Party is like down to like 3% of the popular vote, where they were usually, I think at their peak they were at like 9 or 10, because the new leader basically destroyed the Green Party. And like, I wouldn't even be surprised if the Green Party is just non-existent after this election. If they do poorly enough, they might just completely fall apart. Because even though they're a small party, they had a new leader who took a hard like pro-Israel stance and like has had people like cross the aisle and like people leave the party. And the Green Party is our Green Party is a bit of a mess. They're kind of like an eco-capitalist. They're sort of a like less left wing than a lot of Green Parties you would think in other countries. Like it's more right wing than like the American or the British Green Party. So, and they're very like the main thing is they're very ideologically incoherent. They have a strong like eco-socialist branch, but then they also have a lot of like weird like liberals and eco-capitalists and stuff. And the leadership race was really divisive, and the new leader that was picked was severely disliked and has basically destroyed the party. So, yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be where we're gonna be. Hey there, Step Back. What are we looking at today? We're talking about the Canadian election that we're now in week 2 of. Throughout the first week of the campaign, Trudeau has faced repeated questions from both media and opposition parties about why he decided to dissolve the minority government earlier this month and plunge the country into a federal election, particularly in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Turns out many Canadians may be wondering the same, considering that a whopping 69% of respondents say that they believe that the election could have waited until next year or even later before becoming necessary. On the other hand, barely one respondent out of 5, 21%, thought that now was a good time to have an election. So you could just, yeah, there you go. Yeah, we're electing a new prime minister. I don't know if there are eco-fascists in the Green Party, honestly. If there are, they are not a coordinated movement. There's only like 1 or 2 Green MPs in government, so they're not a real powerful force. What they are is a force that keeps the NDP and Liberals from winning a lot of seats. And so if the NDP or if the Green Party takes a huge hit, it might be bad for the Conservatives because it means that more Liberals and New Democrats might win in those sort of more tight ridings. It doesn't necessarily, like, at this point, we don't know. That's a good thing, right? That means no more Trudeau. Possibly. The only thing is that if Trudeau loses this election, it's most likely that the Conservatives are going to win under Erin O'Toole. Same politics, but much more like, conservative affect. But it is possible that that if he gets another minority government, that Trudeau might resign or something. So to justify his decision to send Canadians to the polls on September 20th, not 30th, Trudeau has argued that the minority government has become toxic and dysfunctional, and that Canadians deserve a voice in choosing the plan that would lead to economic recovery. But opposition parties argued that it amounted to a power grab by Trudeau because he wanted his minority government into a majority in light of favorable polling numbers for his party. Well, he certainly has ruined that. When asked which of these two explanations they believe, the vast majority of respondents agreed with the power grab argument. Yeah. When later asked to choose 6 different reasons which they believe really explain why Canadians are headed to the polls, a combined 30% of respondents said that Trudeau's 2 arguments that Parliament was toxic or that Canadians deserved a voice in post-parliamentary recovery. That's not exactly a resounding endorsement. So, toxic is an interesting choice of words, yeah. Yeah, that's true, and I don't want Chrystia Freeland. Yeah, we're going to get to the Chrystia Freeland thing, too, because that's the next story. We got to talk about how Chrystia Freeland did a media manipulation and got herself in trouble with the Twitter police, our deputy prime minister, who's basically our equivalent of vice president. So those are voters who, if their ballot supporters go, it's 9 out of 10 Liberals. Yeah. So a total of 34% said it did lessen their likelihood to vote Liberal in September, including 41% of NDP voters. See, this is the weird thing. Like, this is like a line you wouldn't hear in Canadian or in American politics. A total of 41% of NDP voters have said they're less likely to vote for Liberals. Or is it less likely to decide how they change their votes? So it's like, yeah, let's see where this goes. And yet another sign that Canadians may not be... The other thing is that there might be very low turnout in this election because of the pandemic and because of the unnecessariness of it. And yet another sign that Canadians may not be paying much attention to the campaign yet. Over 1/3 of respondents said they don't know, whereas Liberals, New Democrats, and Conservatives went neck and neck with 17%, 16%, and 50% of votes, respectively. Yeah, I can tell you from, like, first-person perspective that, like, there's not a lot of signs going up. This election is very, like, it's not hot. Does she have insane stands like VP Harris? Not really. They've tried. There was some like weird shoe thing that they tried to do, where they tried to make her do like a girl boss thing, but it failed miserably. When there's low voter turnout, does that benefit Conservatives? Not necessarily. It's not like in America. Voter turnout will essentially what it's going to do is it's going to result in benefiting whoever can field the strongest ground game, or whichever party looks like it's going to be drumming up the most excitement. Because Canada, compared to the US, has a lot more swing voters. So there's that. But let's talk about Chrystia Freeland. Let's talk about our Deputy Prime Minister and this whole sort of debacle. So this is fun. This is super fun. Okay. So here we go. Chrystia Freeland has acquired many titles since she traded her journalism career for a life in politics. Media manipulator was obviously not a title she intended to add to her resume. While the Liberals say they intended to fight Twitter's decision to stamp Freeland as a misuser over a post she put on Twitter over the weekend, one would hope that the whole incident prompts some soul-searching in all parties. Sure, politics is filled with stunts and over-the-top rhetoric, unlike most careers beyond the summer job category. Politics does require... whatever, this is weird. So, let's see. Yeah, whatever. This article is not the best. Fucking Toronto Star. Okay. By swing voters, do you mean swing between the Liberals and the Tories? Not necessarily. There are actually like weird, like, there's a lot more political dynamics at play because there are liberal Tory swing voters. Yes, they're like kind of like those moderate right wing voters, but there are also like NDP Tory swing voters. In some very specific districts, like a lot more like working class districts and like industrial areas. There's a lot of like, NDP conservative swing voters. In Quebec, there is a lot of liberal or NDP / Bloc Québécois swing voters, depending upon how pissed off they are at Canada at any given time. So, talk about our Nazi grandpa. I actually don't know too much about our Nazi grandpa, except that, yeah, I know that she's like got a fucked up Nazi grandpa. About Canada, you know what? I could talk about anything I want. It's my stream. So I'm good. I don't know who died and made 255 AD the director of what I'm allowed to stream about, so. Yeah. But yeah, Chrystia Freeland, basically what happened is she did a thing where she posted this Q&A with Aaron O'Toole. And Aaron O'Toole was asked this question about whether or not he would privatize our healthcare service, get rid of our universal healthcare and like kind of create an American style one. And the thing that happened is that he said that he would definitely, because he's a conservative, he would definitely privatize parts of it, but that it would be important for us to stick to our principle of universal healthcare. So, but the thing is that Chrystia Freeland kind of released this video that was edited in a way to suggest that Aaron O'Toole suggest that Aaron O'Toole said that he would privatize healthcare. And so what happened with that is that it resulted in Twitter coming in and being like, "Hey, no." Those warnings they used to give, remember when Trump used to be, on Twitter and like every other tweet he'd put out would be like, "This is false information. This is counterfactual," and like all this kind of stuff. Well, this event resulted in her getting one of those, saying this video has been manipulated. I thought that was unconstitutional. Yeah, but constitutions can change. We change our constitution a lot more than the Americans do. So that's the situation. So they manipulated a video, or her people probably did, and it got like the sort of like, "This is manipulated media" warning from Twitter when they were kind of like that thing they use for flagging disinformation or whatever. And then that made like the Liberals got defensive, and it was a really funny, silly situation. But yeah, we still got a whole few weeks to go, so fun times ahead. And yeah, it was actually Oppo research in the 2019 election that unearthed all of the blackface that Trudeau had been doing. So maybe we'll find some more of that. Okay, next let's talk about COVID. Bunch of things. So first of all, British Columbia is now the second. So 2 Canadian provinces have decided to require proof of vaccination. So you know how in America there's all this issue about vaccine passports? We now have 2 provinces now that essentially say they're going to go in September. They're going to go into a sort of lockdown for unvaccinated people. So if you want to go into any public space for anything but essential services, you have to have a record of your vaccination. So Quebec and BC are doing that. I don't know what other provinces are doing. I imagine we're not going to get that because Doug Ford sucks. But yeah. Could Harry Kim ever be promoted from ensign? Probably. He probably will. I think he becomes captain at one point. Yeah, so now we're kind of getting into what's going to happen about vaccine passport. I'm for them, personally, because essentially, if you're not vaccinated with this Delta variant, you are essentially a public health hazard. And given how high cases are and how deadly COVID would be if you caught it if you're unvaccinated, then the amount of danger for you is enough to warrant a lockdown, but not for vaccinated people. Vaccine passports are politicized medical tyranny. No, it's fucking like if like a bunch of people were like radioactive, you wouldn't let them near other people. Vaccinated or catching, get the fuck out of here. You have no idea what you're talking about. Even if it, what's it called? Yeah, there are breakthrough cases, but like, it'd be like saying like what's it called? 47% of people who die in car accidents aren't wearing seatbelts. And then like, and you're gonna like, what's it called? Would you argue then, 53% of people are die in car accidents wearing seatbelts? I guess, what's it called? I guess seatbelts don't work. Like they still help a lot, and even if you like do get sick, you get less sick. That's why like almost 100% of people who are being hospitalized for Delta variant are not vaccinated. So, and yeah, the effectiveness does drop off, and we're gonna need boosters. We're probably gonna need boosters like every year or so forever. Because fucking anti-vaxxers have essentially like, have basically fucked it up. Will this just fuel their persecution complex? I honestly don't fucking care. They're a danger to people. And until first of all, they're in danger of getting sick and dying. And also, they are a danger to other people because they are more likely to catch and spread this virus. So, yeah, what is a booster exactly? Just getting another injection to cover for mutations and sort of get your immune system reacquainted with it, basically. And honestly, at this point, we're probably not going to contain, like, COVID's never going to go away. We're just going to, what's it called? We're just going to need to, get our immune system primed to it so that as it becomes endemic. So. Yeah, so at this point, though, like, the thing is, like, Canada, like for example, Ontario is getting, like, 700 cases a day. And, like, we weren't too far off from that when like Ontario was in like deep lockdown. And if you're unvaccinated, you should probably be in deep lockdown. While 700 cases a day, if you're vaccinated, where you're more likely to just get sick and not get hospitalized, you don't have to worry about flattening the curve really. So you don't have to be out there, and it would suck for everybody to have to lock down for safety because like 20% of people are too fucking stupid to get vaccinated. Or, as we'll talk about later, well, this is more in America, but in our case, it's people are just too freaking, like, being too silly. You're all for masks and personal choice against mandates? Cute. Okay. I should just be able to, like, what's it called? Cover myself in radioactive waste and walk around anybody I want. That's freedom, right? I should be able to work in a restaurant and not wash my hands, right? That's my freedom. I'm for personal choice. It's my personal choice to not wash my hands when I go to the bathroom, and then I'm going to go and touch your food. Like, I don't think you understand that we are fundamentally connected people. They are acting like children, yes. They are being well, the people who have access that can get vaccinated, that are like, you know, that don't have various other reasons why they can't get vaccinated are, yeah. But we'll get to that because I actually have something to say on that. But let's look at this article real quick. So this is COVID. Delta has changed our pandemic risk calculus. And so a lot of what this is showing is that vaccination and the Delta variant is changing how we need to perceive how we perceive risk, because the way that we thought about like how many cases is dangerous, or get the fuck out of here, Lou. The hell are you? Fucking typhoid Lou over here. Okay. I have a friend who doesn't want to get vaccinated. I don't know what to do. Do you have any ideas to help him get vaccinated? What's he worried about? Really, like, there's different arguments. So basically, like, the thing is, like, when you're vaccinated, like the amount, like, so like when we choose to do lockdowns and stuff like that, we're trying to do like a lot of stuff to manage healthcare resources. But healthcare resources and managing those are different when you're in a situation where you're trying to deal with case numbers, but for people who are not getting sick enough to go to the hospital. But some people who are not vaccinated who are getting sick enough to go to the hospital. And so, like, what is a safe lockdown? What is like a dangerous thing to do, especially because, you know, COVID's airborne and stuff, and like trying to figure out like what is good, what is bad, and like what is a situation is actually a lot more complicated than it used to be. And of course, we need to talk about the fact that this. I'm not going to read this article, but essentially, the one thing that I wanted to show about this article, that's the most important. And fucking crazy. So we've been talking about how people are, go away. We're talking about in a previous stream about how people are taking fucking horse paste, like this deworming agent for horses, as a way to treat COVID, because the vaccine's too dangerous. So they're taking a fucking deworming agent for livestock, to the point where in Mississippi, 70% of poison control calls are now for people eating this stuff called ivermectin, which is this deworming agent for horses that's not designed to be used by humans. Which is fucking... These vaccines don't really stop people from getting sick, right? They don't stop people from... They are highly... Like, they make you less likely to contract it. Yes. And even if you do contract it, you are way less likely to get sick. Or to get seriously sick, I should say. So they still do help stopping the spread, yes. So yeah, ivermectin, including, and this will be fun, our new favorite far-right, alt-right grifter, fucking Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore has started getting into getting people to eat... Yeah, this is injecting bleach. This is fucking hydroxychloroquine all over again. But now it's got that wonderful Like the fact that Jimmy Dore is now pushing horse paste on people, and also talking about how dangerous the vaccine is. So this is fun. It's fun how this is going. This is where we're at, everybody. Oh boy. All right. And yeah, I did a Twitter thread kind of about like the important thing, which is that like in America specifically, America has very low vaccination rate, and there's this I even did this today. What? I was talking about how people who are not vaccinated are obviously grifters or are obviously like stupid. And it's actually that's a little bit classist, because if you look at the actual cases, as you can see here with this tweet by David Sirota, 1/3 of unvaccinated people say they would be more likely to get the shot if their employer gave them time to get it and recover from it. And that while like, anti-vaxxers are the loud minority that then liberals can use to say, oh, look, the people who are the reason why the vaccination process has been stalled is because of these people who are loud assholes and also just playing into classist tropes about, those dumb pores believing in conspiracy theories again. While the main problem that a lot of people are having getting access to COVID or getting access to vaccines come from, one, people of color who have a long history of having medical experiments done on them in America. That is actually getting better. The outreach is getting good on that one. Then there is also language barriers for immigrants where English is not their first language, and that can cause a lot of like misunderstandings or lack of things. But the big thing is that there's like America has very poor public transit. They have no paid sick leave. They have like only New York has given people time off to go get the vaccine from work, paid time off to get the vaccine off from work. And like most people in Washington don't fucking notice that like most Americans, or if not most Americans, a fuck ton of Americans are essentially have no time, or like they can't even risk the idea that they might miss work. And so they can't get the vaccine because it's in a fucking like a vaccination clinic that's on the other side of town, and it takes like 2.5 hours on the bus to get there. And then, so like once you get there and get back, like a whole fucking day's passed. And on top of that, if you get sick, like if you get a side effect from the vaccine, you still have to go to work, because if you don't go to work, you don't get paid, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you don't have enough money. You don't have anything saved. You're probably in shit tons of debt. So you can't even, if you want to pay rent and eat at the same time, you can't be sick. What's a good resources for helping leftists who ascribe to 9/11 conspiracy theories? There's the 9/11 episode of Well, There's Your Problem is probably the best I've ever seen on it. But like, this is important that like, let's see, like, and by the way, POC are doing better with vaccinations than whites. Yes, this was more that what I was talking about was more the case earlier in the vaccination process. It's reversed quite heavily now. So I want to show like one thing about this thread. I don't want to show my account. I want to show the thread. Really? Okay. Let's see if this works. Let's see. Which is, yeah. Like, the other thing is that when we can't get access to something, we justify to ourselves why we didn't do something as us being more moral. It was talked about a little bit in the ContraPoints video. And when you can't get the vaccine because of like working and like work restrictions and stuff, then you try to justify that it's actually good to not get a vaccine. You create more fucking anti-vaxxers. But like, if you want to get more people vaccinated, you need paid sick leave. You need paid time off. But to do that, you would need to actually like, give workers, like give people even a fucking millimeter in this like dystopian fucking this like dystopian neoliberal nightmare that is our world. And so we're never going to be able to like get people these people vaccinated because ideologically neoliberals will refuse to do anything that would include increasing workers' rights. And so instead, they're going to pin all of the problems with getting vaccinated on these like anti-vaxxers who are mostly like middle class like weirdos and not something that and not representative of most people who are not vaccinated. This is how kind of during the entire Trump administration, the liberal media, oh man, what a weird thing to say, but the neoliberal media was basically convincing everybody that that Trump's support was like this white working class, like it was just poor, salt of the earth coal miners who supported Trump, and it was fucking like the fucking like small business tyrants. It was all upper middle class like used boat salesmen and shit like that. Like it was not the poor. The poor aren't Republicans. The poor just don't vote because nobody does anything for them. And in this case, they can't get their. But yet we use this they're just crazy and dumb reactionaries as language to dismiss that the fucking working class people aren't doing the things that we want them, like things like getting the vaccine, because there are systems in place that are meant to basically punish the workers that are preventing them. So, yeah. And then, because of that, the U.S. is now getting 100,000, 150,000 cases a day. And Florida just beat the all-time record for one-day infections. So it turns out in all of those southern states where you're saying they're all just anti-vaxxers, turns out it's also the states that have the weakest workers' rights. And all the states with the weakest workers' rights are all the ones where the fucking pandemic's taking off. And also, on top of that, they were doing this through the whole pandemic too, because we kept saying that why are we not able to contain this virus? Why does it keep spreading? Why does it keep spreading? And it was and then everyone was like, oh, it's because of these anti-maskers. When it's the anti-maskers weren't the main one. It was the fact that we have people working paycheck to paycheck who cannot afford to keep living in a house and and take time off. If they don't have sick leave, they don't eat. If they get sick and they don't work, they don't eat. And so we had a whole situation where the essential workers, the frontline workers, the people we were getting on our balconies and clapping at the whole pandemic, we were fucking over because we can't give them, we couldn't let them take time off when they were sick with this pandemic, and it just kept spreading. So, again, we said no, is because of the anti-maskers who are not a majority of people. And so yet again, we used accusations of deranged reactionary conspiracy theorists to paint over the fact that the pandemic spread and is continuing to spread right now, and the vaccination effort has been stalled by the fact that the United States and all neoliberal countries have just the weakest workers' rights. And if we just gave them paid time off, or if they were able to, get paid sick leave, or if they had a public transit system that functioned, we would not be in this situation. Oh, sorry, I got a little heated there. But, yeah. It's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. Some other stuff that's come up. I don't exactly know how much detail I can get into with it, honestly. But, it's stuff that happened this week. The OnlyFans thing. So OnlyFans is banning pornography, but not risque photos or something. And what's come up with that is obviously that It's yet another case of a online platform that built its wealth off of sex workers, only to sell them under the bus the second they're about to see big money in their future. Happened with Backpage, happened with Craigslist, and it's happening with OnlyFans, and it's fucking bullshit. Especially because for a lot of like sex workers and strippers and such, like, OnlyFans is what got them through the pandemic. Yeah. And also it's based on some like credit card changes that could fuck up a lot of other stuff. Thoughts on the September election? It feels like between I have been getting dragged to the polls too much as a New Brunswicker. Yeah. I spent the first hour of this stream talking about the Canadian election, so if you want, you can, after this stream is over, you can go and watch the first hour where I go into it for a good chunk. Why isn't there a Discord section for submitting questions? Because it's easier to do it with just the submission form. Because I got to keep records and stuff like that. Like, it's making it better for me to collect them and such. What I should get, maybe I should do this. Maybe I can encourage people to put stuff on the subreddit, and then I can respond. Don't do that quite yet. I'll think about it, but I know that Hassan gets people to post stuff on a subreddit to look at, which might be interesting. But yeah. Because Visa threatened to pull out. No, the OnlyFans thing was because MasterCard threatened to pull out, and it has to do with something to do with like Sesta Fosta or something. I'll be honest, I don't know too much of the details of what's going on with this, and you should probably talk to somebody who knows more about what's going on. But the general consensus is that the OnlyFans thing is, again, exploiting sex workers and then abandoning them, once they're actually making money. So there's that. What is Sesta Fosta? Sesta Fosta is it was like a human trafficking law that was passed a couple years ago in Congress in America, and it led to the banning of Backpage, which was the making Backpage giving up take sex work off the site, and basically while trying to do like a kind of like anti-human trafficking law, they are accidentally made life more dangerous for a whole lot of sex workers. And OnlyFans is going to do the same thing. It's going to make making money more difficult for sex workers, and it's going to put them in a more dangerous situation, because if they don't have safe ways to do their business, then you're ending up in more criminal situations. You're ending up with like pimps and abusers and rape and all of the mechanisms they have to choose clients and keep themselves safe is all getting wrecked. Can you recommend someone that would be good to ask for questions like that? That's a good... I actually don't know. And what I'm learning is that a lot of these like anti-sex work laws, like the law that led to MasterCard pulling out of OnlyFans unless they ban porn, and also the one that led to Sesta Fosta, is from this like anti-sex work organization that has links to like, fundamentalist Christian stuff. Just like, God damn it. His name is Hassan. Hassan maybe can speak more on it, yeah. Yeah, great, Scotty. They are getting pressure by religious orgs that are trying to eliminate pornography under the guise of stopping sex trafficking. Exactly. It's a kind of like a non-profit type thing. So, I guess I had more to say on that than I thought. But maybe I should. Maybe I'll make it would a subreddit work as a way to submit content / questions or whatever? That might be fun. Then I can just be like Hassan and just browse a subreddit all day as my content. No, I really like Hassan's content, so does way more than that. But it's a good way to sort of like channel all that stuff. I don't know who you could... Trying to think of, I think there might have been a worst year ever on Sesta Fosta. I don't remember, but I don't have anything to really like dig into. Other things that have come up is that there's been a bit of at the National Ignition Laboratory, there's been this, or National Ignition something, there's been a breakthrough in fusion power, although it's still like way too little for anything that's actually usable. But apparently there was a big step forward on it, so that's a good thing to say. Somebody also asked me about anaerobic digestion power, like anaerobic digestion, so I looked it up. So this is like biomass creating of methane. So this is a proposal to use the anaerobic bacterial breakdown of like organic waste, sort of like the stuff we'd put in a composter, to make methane, which could then be used to make power. Or being used to make like cooking like gas for like ovens and for heating and such like that. And looking at it seems legit. It's renewable. All of the carbon that is burned in it is carbon. It's at least carbon neutral because it's anything that is being burned and made as part of the methane is part of the carbon cycle. So means that all the carbon that's going into the atmosphere is carbon that was already taken out of the atmosphere when the plants and animals that were growing were doing that. So there's something to that. I think that this could be, especially if we have a strong, like, to take care of our need for like natural gas, and for some places where like, gas heating and gas cookware, like my house has a natural gas stove and or natural gas oven, I guess I should say, and that's like, that's key, like to give like that kind of thing and get that kind of stuff taken away. So yeah. To answer the question, yeah, it does seem like it could get, this could be something to help us take care of, especially when it comes to our need for kind of carbon neutral natural gas, because it is not digging carbon out of the earth, but actually getting natural gas from living things, which is nice. Will smell like shit, but it's not a bad idea. I would probably need to talk to somebody who knows a little bit more about this to be like definitive, but what I saw looks good. God, do I want to talk about the Nathan Robinson thing? This has been such a fucking week. Nathan Robinson, the host of, or the what's it called? The chief editor of Current Affairs, sort of blew up on his staff because they tried to turn this magazine that was like trying to make the world more socialist. They tried to turn it into a co-op, and he sort of blew up on this. I don't exactly know, this blew up for like one day and then it quieted down real quick, and I haven't seen updates, but it was a thing that happened. Do you think Afghanistan is going to energize the American far right and let them take over Congress next year, like Tea Party 2? We'll see. If there's like a major, like they're already trying to create a freak out over the Afghan refugees that are going to go, the few Afghan refugees that America is taking in after fucking up their country. So we'll see how big and bad that gets. But Biden's already taken quite a big hit to his approval rating because of the handling of Afghanistan. Or if he invades Afghanistan again, which is apparently a thing that's on the table now. So I have Crohn's, no large intestine. I have enough methane to power our home. Oh, too much. Oh, boy. Well, you can just, what's it called? Hook a lighter up to your bag and just get a little flame going. Sorry, that's probably inconsiderate. Hey, Rebecca. Hope you're doing well, too. But yeah, does I guess never considered gas with a colostomy. No bag, it was reversed. What? I'm confused. What is that? Okay. Oh, yeah. And at the end of the news segment, hey, we have good news. So as you guys know, about a month ago, I hit 100,000 subscribers, and my play button should be arriving on Thursday sometime. So that'll be fun. I'm gonna make an unboxing video. I'm making like a general channel update video that'll probably come out like next week sometime. So, yeah. All right, now let's get into the questions. Let's see, how much time we got? Half an hour? Yeah, we can do this. All right. So Jiffy Chips asked for some book recommendations. So it was any book recommendations, either nonfiction, historical, or political fiction. So I am just using books that I have read in 2021 for this list because I get this question a lot. So I feel like I should just, keep adding to. I just have like a list of book recommendations going on as people ask for it, as people ask this question often. So this is the last few books that I have read that have that are either about stuff that you guys would find interesting or are, fiction about political topics and stuff like that. So the most recent book is After the Revolution by Robert Evans. I'm sure many of you, we've talked about this book a lot in the stream because it was podcasted. And it's a very interesting book about a post-Civil War Balkanized America in the future where there's some cool body modification and cyber thing stuff, but basically it's about an America that has essentially gone the way of Syria during the Syrian Civil War, and it's all about the deep divisions about America and that are in America culturally today, and about these sort of the dangers of being a country that just stays at war forever. So that's that. The other one was a book called How Fascism Works, which was a really great breakdown of the sort of major things that make a fascist movement function. It was really good. It was a pretty good analysis, especially using history and different contemporary fascist, used historical fascism and different attributes of it, and then sort of when it comes to those definitions, it then looks at a bunch of contemporary fascist movements and determine whether or not they're fascist. So it looks at Trump, it looks at Serbia, I want to say, it looks at Viktor Orban, and how these fit into a sort of historical definition of fascism. It was really good, especially because fascism seems to be this word that nobody seems to have a comfortable definition that they can go with. So this was a good one for me, and I thought it was really interesting. Muhammad, a biography of the Prophet by something Armstrong. The hell was it? Let's see. Karen Armstrong. That's it. Karen Armstrong. Very good book. It was, as it says, it's a biography of the Prophet Muhammad and the founding of the Islamic faith. It is done in a historical style, but it still leaves room for respect for the spiritual beliefs of Muslim people. So, but it does, give different explanations for why Islam showed up in the time it did, what Muhammad was doing, and also kind of speaks about Muhammad as a figure who showed up at a very particular time in the history of the Arabian Peninsula to essentially broker peace in a very chaotic and violent time. And it's a very, very, very good book. I thought I learned so much about the life of Muhammad and about kind of the political aspects of why Islam came into what it was, and I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. I thought I had a pretty good time reading it. Am I Muslim? No, but I had some Islamophobic beliefs when I was a late teenager, and I had a sort of like come to Jesus moment when I actually started. I did something that a lot of Islamophobes don't do, which is talk to Muslims about their beliefs. And I sort of have been working to, fight against the, discrimination against Muslims. I did my master's thesis on Islamophobia, and so, trying to develop like a higher respect for the contribution Muslims have played to world culture, and for trying to advocate for the rights of Muslims against Islamophobia is like a big part of my of my life. The other book I got here is Braiding Sweetgrass, which is sort of about different ways of knowing. It's by a professor by the name of Robin Kimmerer. She's a botanist who is also a indigenous person who grew up in like an indigenous cultural tradition. And the book is all about looking at the different ways of knowing between indigenous, like how indigenous people conceived of the world, especially about our relationship with the natural world, and how that contrasts against the like scientific understanding of the world and the Western cultural understanding of our relationship with nature. And she tries to synthesize those two through like a bunch, kind of like a long memoir. And that was basically it was a really good book. And I learned quite a bit from that. What was my college major? History. I got an honors degree in history. And then I did a master's degree in American cultural studies, and I did a second master's degree in American history, and I dropped out of a PhD in U.S. history, and it was sort of like on a topic in U.S. history and the history of technology and communication. So... the next is Debt the First 5,000 Years by David Graeber. Great book. Probably if you want to understand economics and sort of like a mix between a anarchist and Marxist understanding of economics and the role of money in society, you would do like Debt is like the book for understanding those topics. So yeah, Debt the First 5,000 Years, really, really good. Why did I drop out? I dropped out because because of Step Back. I moved to Toronto in 2017 for a year, which is not where my campus was, and I didn't connect much with my campus. But what happened is Step Back started becoming more and more popular, and it became more and more the thing that I wanted to do with my life. And the success of Step Back was getting me to the point where I actually thought I could do it. So I dropped out after getting to a point where I was like, I don't think I think I can. I want to try and make my goal to do Step Back full time, and now that's what I do. I did take a year to work for a nonprofit to sort of like breach the gap between those two. But once Step Back was like, once I got to a certain point, I left that job after about a year, and then I have been full time ever since. Is getting a master's expensive in Canada? Not really. I got paid to do it. So I didn't get paid very much, but what I did get paid covered like all of my tuition and stuff like that. So all I needed to, I had to live off of not that much money, but yeah, I got paid to do my master's. Or should I say, when at my university, when you do a master's degree, you are guaranteed a job. So you have to go to grad school, and you get a job as a teaching assistant or a research assistant, and that pays for your university. Will you and Mia Moulter ever invite Cavernacle, who is also a history and international studies major, has a great channel? I've never even heard of Cavernacle. So how'd you get paid to go to college? It's just how it works in grad school here. Like, you like as part of the school, how the school works is when you get accepted, part of your acceptance letter is that you get offered a job as a research assistant or a teacher's assistant, and the first thing that happens is that part of that work contract includes them paying your tuition. So that's how it worked in my university. So what's it called? For 3 years, no, more than that. For 4 years, I had for 3 years, I had a bunch of 19-year-old kids stuck with me for 2 hours a week as we had discussions about American history. And then for 1 year, I actually was a TA for a children's literature class. So I was in a group of 19-year-old English majors as we talked about children's books. So that was fun. Bringing the War Home is the next book I got by Kathleen Belew. If you like my White Power series, my White Power series is essentially based off this book. Like almost like very extensively, like it's like borderline an adaptation of this book. So if you like the White Power series, read Bring the War Home. It is my videos but more. And last is Parable of the Sower, which is a science fiction novel by Octavia Butler. It's a science fiction series. It's the first one in that. It takes place in a America that essentially like neoliberal decay has gotten to the point where the state has largely abandoned like most people. And it's about a community of people who are trying to survive in that kind of condition by living by basically anarchist principles. It's really good. It's really, really good. And it's about a girl coming of age in that kind of situation. All right. Family member of mine got her master's and has $100,000 in student loan debt, and unfortunately, her starting wage after graduation was only $21 an hour. Oh, that sucks. My what's it called? I graduated, like when I finished all of grad school and everything like that, undergrad, and what was that last one? The last one was Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. The only thing I will warn you, though, is that Parable of the Sower is the beginning of a series of books, and unfortunately, Octavia Butler died fairly young. She died, I think, in her 40s or 50s, and she didn't finish the series. So I don't know what I'm going to do about reading the rest of it, but it still works as a book. But yeah, all of university, I put myself in about 30 grand of debt, and I am out of it now. I got very lucky in that. All right. Next up, we got a question from Matt Lipton. Should left-tubers start ignoring Caleb Maupin? Obviously, people who are anti-fascist should keep tabs on him, but I feel like Thought Slime, Lance, and Abad and Panada keep making this obvious bait by Maupin, and he can use it to increase his relevance for YouTube drama. I mean, I ignore him. I think we should always ignore fascists, but it's not exactly the most popular opinion. What's my thoughts on Brandon Sanderson? That's the Mistborn guy, right? I read Mistborn, or I read most of Mistborn. I didn't like it very much, so I dropped it. But I have heard his work has like weird Christian supremacist and like fascist themes in it. So I can't verify that myself because Mistborn was just kind of like an Avatar knockoff heist story. So I don't know. I feel like I'm the only person on Earth who didn't like Mistborn. So I don't know what to say. Right now I'm reading like a fantasy novel that is just like the stupidest novel ever. Like its politics are non-existent. It's just silly kind of steampunk airship shit. And I am enjoying it because I needed a vacation. Am I reading? what is it? It's called the Aeronauts Windlass or something like that. Let me just find it real quick. It's got a really funky name. Yeah, it's called the Aeronauts Windlass. By Jim Butcher, who I think is more famous for writing a different book series that I forget the name of right now. So, all right, let's see. What do we got next? How arbitrary are definitions like city and civilization? 5,800 years ago, the largest settlements on Earth were built by Eastern European society called the Kukuteni Taipilia. But apparently archaeologists are reluctant to say the Kukuteni Taipilia were a true city-building civilization because their settlements, 1, lacked evidence of culture of central government, 2, lacked evidence of being primarily trading centers, i.e. they seem to have primarily just be places where farmers banded together at night. So for those reasons, they're not considered a true civilization, despite building the largest settlements on Earth when they were around. Huh. I didn't know about this, but it does show that, like, it's words like civilization or even city are nebulous concepts that are kind of like kind of break down with the fully, like, they're based on like this idea that like humans are that we have a very capitalist centered and what's it called, state centered idea of what civilization is. And that reflects in the way that we see cultures in the past. Hence why we, like, you know, when we look at the past, we see all these like city-states and stuff like that, but we don't think about the vast civilizations of people who were nomads or who lived away from the government and instead kind of just wrote them off as barbarians. Jim Butcher wrote the Dresden Files. Okay. I haven't read the Dresden Files, but what's it called? The Aeronauts Windlass is pretty good. He's a very compelling writer of, you know, popcorn action book. And if this is anything to go off, I'll probably end up checking out the Dresden Files afterwards because it's been a pretty good read. I won't lie. Those books on the list are most of the books I've let's say, like, this is an example of some of the books I've read in 2021 so far, and you can see it's quite heavy reading. So I needed a break for like late summer stuff. So yeah. How do I feel about Death of the Author? I want to read and buy Warren Ellis' stuff, but he turns out he's a monster. I mean, do whatever you're comfortable with. If you can find a way to get the book like used so that Warren Ellis isn't getting money, that would be great. But in the end, like, I am of the opinion that your work leaves your ownership the second you publish it. And that when you get a book, in some ways, the relationship is between you and the book. The author can definitely be of influence, kind of like, you know, how any child is going to be influenced by their parents. But at the end of the day, the relationship is between you and the book. And you can take from it whatever you want. Ooh, we got a new person here? Just recently found your YouTube channel. Glad you're on Twitch. Hey, nice to see you. FCN Neurotoxin. That's kind of a cool name. I love the Dresden Files, but warning, it is uber sexist. Oh, fun. Okay. That's odd because this book, the two main characters are women. And they're like, you know, pretty, like, I mean, they're like interesting characters. I don't know. The Aeronauts Windlass is a fucking wild fantasy series. Or fantasy book so far. I'm not even that far into it. It's just like 10% in, it's got talking cats, flying boats, like brass gauntlets that shoot lasers, like not only talking cats, but people who are kind of cat-like. And that's just like the first 10% of the book. Oh, and everybody lives in like arcologies, like these giant spires, because the Earth has become too dangerous or something. I'm like, this is like, there's so much shit in like this first 10% of the novel. I'm down. I've been trying to, you know, let myself. I'm also reading a book called Throne of the Crescent Moon by Saladin Ahmed, who has written a bunch of stuff. He's written a bunch of comics. He wrote the first run of Miss Marvel, and what's it called? The Kingdom of the Crescent Kingdom or whatever it's called. Let me just find it. I have to remember. I can't remember the name of the books I am reading, but let's see. It's called Throne of the Crescent Moon. That's what it's called. And it is a fun novel that is, if you want to go at the end of the day, it is about, it is basically like, what if The Witcher took place in a fantasy setting that was more based off Middle Eastern mythology and was run, and Geralt is, instead of being some sort of like alchemy enhanced super soldier, is a like old fat wizard. That's basically like, that's basically what the book is, and it's fucking great. I'm having a great time. And also kind of like, and this is interesting because I haven't seen this in fantasy before, which I actually find kind of cool, is that it's the only fantasy setting I know of that actually has monotheism as canon. And I think even like a monotheistic religion that's pretty heavily based on Islam as well, where like casting spells is like reading, like you have to read literature to cast the spells and stuff like that. Have I seen the Tory ad about corrupting ants? No, I just saw the Willy Wonka one. But again, that one's also like a popcorn book. Like it's not trying to say anything. It's just a fun high fantasy novel with magic and stuff. It's pretty good. Is he still constantly getting laid, and is in a relationship with someone he's madly in love with? He is, what's it called? I don't know if he, I think he actually, I don't know for sure because it doesn't do egregious, like, lore dumps. But I think they kind of implied in the most recent chapter I read that he actually has to stay a virgin in order for his magic to work. But he is, like, very resentful of that. And now that he's old, he, like, has this wistful attachment to this woman who runs a brothel that he like they obviously had something approaching a romance that has like a dark past, and he and like they can't be together, but like they want to, and if he has sex he loses his magic or something because purity or whatever. It's got some really cool stuff going. Have I read The Witcher? Yes, I read the first one. The one that the collection of short stories that the first season of the show was largely based on. The Last Wish, that's what it's called. What do I think the main message of The Witcher 3 was? I don't know. I haven't finished it yet. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we got some questions about Afghanistan. Suppose the U.S. decided to carry on in Afghanistan indefinitely. How long would have been sustainable? Last week you said that the Taliban were already winning. Does that mean that they could have already taken over without the U.S. voluntarily pulling out? Yeah, well, they kind of did. That's the thing. Is like the U.S. doesn't officially pull out, I think, until the 31st. So, and the Taliban have already taken over the country. So, yeah. I don't know. The thing is, like, America, like, losing Afghanistan is like the issue with that is just gets old. like the American people were, it was unpopular, it was expensive, and like I don't know if America has like, you know, the ability to carry on an empire like that forever. So God, purity bullshit, that shit can fuck right off. Yeah, well the thing is, it's got this purity bullshit, but the entire book kind of acknowledges that it's bullshit. Like, this guy has to stay pure to do his magic, and there's like another guy, he has like a sidekick who's like a kid who's like going down that same kind of like hardcore religious path of like a different type of like religious order, and this guy's like, don't do that, have fun, like, go be a teenager, go like, you know, go love people, go be like, he's like trying to dissuade it, like he's like, I made this choice and it fucked up my life and it's awful, don't do it yourself. But it's like, but I need to in order to do magic so I can fight undead creatures and stuff. So it's like, it's got a little bit more to say about that kind of thing. It doesn't like, the book doesn't like accept it whole cloth, if that makes sense. Like it definitely comes at a cost. Thoughts on the Percy Jackson series? I don't know the Percy Jackson series. I've never read any books by him, I don't think. All right, last question. 2 tours in Afghanistan and 3 tours in Iraq. I couldn't save him. Dear God, Rebecca, that is terrible. I'm so sorry. Yeah, like, but yeah, that's an example of like, yeah, like violence destroys people. Violence, like war and violence is never good. Sometimes it might be necessary, but it's never good. And you have to acknowledge that, like, by doing war, you are destroying a lot of people. And that really sucks. I'm really sorry to hear about that. All right. Last question we got here is, on Saturday, the cynical historian did a stream about the end of the Afghanistan war. At one point, Cypher says that it's a myth the U.S. funded the Taliban because the Mujahideen and the Taliban were different organizations. It's just the case the Taliban ended up getting some of the aid meant to the Mujahideen because the people in Mujahideen went to join the Taliban. Thoughts on that claim? I guess it's the terrorist group of Theseus, right? If a group that the U.S. funded and trained to fight the Soviets then defeats the Soviets and then like members of that group then start a new organization, is what's it called? Like, it'd be like a successor organization, kind of like how ISIS is a successor organization of Al Qaeda, because ISIS began as Al Qaeda in Iraq, and now ISIS is in Afghanistan. By the way, that's fun. That's a fun new thing that's going on. So, because you know, these chaotic conflict zones are where things like ISIS thrive. And so, yeah, definitely that's going to be a new place where they show up. So, yeah. I think there's main way, like, the U.S. is blamed for, like, the Taliban is because they are the ones who put all of the weapons and trained all of the terrorists. And then when the Soviet Union disappeared, they went in different directions. What's the book you're reading again called? I am reading 2 books. Actually, I'm reading 3 books right now. But one of them is not really a book that I think that you guys would be interested in. I am reading The Throne of the... Let me just open my Goodreads. Throne of the Crescent Moon. That's that book about the Witcher, Middle Eastern Witcher kind of book. And the other one is called The Aeronauts Windlass. Which is kind of cool, because it's like a fantasy book, but it takes place in sort of like a culture that's very similar to like 18th century England. So like duels and stuff like that are still a thing, and like the sort of like family, like kind of like what's it called? There's sort of a Jane Austen-esque like idea of like family reputations and stuff like that. So it's got some cool stuff going on there. Wait, ISIS branched off of Al Qaeda? Yes, yeah, they did. ISIS began as a group called Al Qaeda in Iraq. It was Al Qaeda's branch in Iraq that didn't show up until after the invasion of Iraq, kind of like in the insurgent chaos. They showed up and they started it up. And then the leader of Al Qaeda in Iraq, who ended up becoming what's it called, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was the leader of ISIS. So as Al Qaeda in Iraq spread over the border into Syria, they rebranded themselves into ISIS. The Cinder Spires, the Aeronets Windlass. Yeah, that's the book. Are most boomers aware of how privileged they are/were? A few days ago, my dad made a joke about being from the toughest generation. I got annoyed and said, actually, your generation's considered the most economically privileged in history. He was like, what, really? And said, have you ever wondered why basically everyone you grew up with ended up owning houses in the suburbs? I mean, what you're saying there is basically showing that they aren't that super aware of it, no. I assume no one around me on Twitch reads anything that doesn't have a show or movie. Just been to Southern Ontario. It seems pretty lame. Changed my mind. No, it's pretty lame. Toronto's pretty cool, but the rest of it's pretty lame. Wasn't Al Qaeda essentially invented by the U.S. to group all Islamic groups into one, and then the Islamic groups started working together? It wasn't invented by the U.S. It was invented by, it was put together by Osama bin Laden and some people around him. He was a radical who had deep connections with the sort of like wealthy elite in Saudi Arabia, and he was the one who came to the idea that if these different groups from around the Islamic world were able to coordinate their efforts, and also he would be able to work as sort of a way to launder money from like wealthy people in Saudi Arabia into these groups, then it could be a powerful organization, and it was. But while Osama bin Laden did get training and did get weapons from America, I don't think that the U.S. was involved with the founding of Al Qaeda. No. Yeah, white boomers. Yes. Bin Laden's family is like the largest construction company in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, specifically. Yeah. Although I will say that you have to also mention that you also have to keep in mind that families are very big there for various reasons. And so the Bin Ladens are a very big group of people. And not all of them are like close or even know each other. Is it okay for veterans to be proud of building infrastructure in Afghanistan? Cypher said that as well. Kind of sounded like he was rationalizing. I mean, you could speak a little bit, too, about how these people were tricked into thinking they were doing good things when really they were just serving the interests of corporations. But honestly, in this situation, making it about the veterans is like, okay, whatever. Like, it's the people of Afghanistan who are suffering right now. Like, there was like the TikTok Afghanistan guy who was like this country is falling apart and people are dying and it's like this horrible situation, but I'm going to make it about me. And it's like, oh, God. Apparently bin Laden was an outcast in his family. Yeah, because he was a religious fanatic. Does your wife have a lot of degrees? Apologies, that's too nosy. No, she has a PhD. She has a PhD in psychology. So she is a doctor. My doctor wife. But not like the therapist type of psychology, like the kind of like social psychology. So what she's good at is like metrics and data and stuff like that, and statistics and that kind of stuff. Have I ever heard of the Kukuteni Tapila culture before? No, I haven't. Not at all. Well, it is 9 o'clock, so it's time for me to shut this stream down. Guys, this was a really good stream. I'm not going to lie. You guys were great. We had some pretty good conversations, a lot of good stuff. Obviously, getting prepared ahead of time really helps. So I'll be back next week. We are going to talk about whatever the fuck happens in the next week, since every week is an entirely new flavor of Nightmare. Let's go raid left flank vets. But yeah, I'll be back on Monday with Mia. And you guys take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Take care, everybody. Be good.